Good afternoon again from episode 20 of Blockspeak. And such an anniversary deserves a fantastic guest. We have John McAfee on last week, being published tomorrow, but I think we may have reached the top of the pile. I know Roger Ver from conferences. I don't know him that well. He stitched me up at a conference a couple of months ago when he quite easily won a kind of purse fight against Tone Vaz. So how are you, Roger?
Yeah, busy building that peer-to-peer electronic cash system for the world every day. So I'm doing great.
Where are you, Roger?
I'm in the Caribbean once again. As you can see the beautiful palm trees behind me there. So.
And there's no COVID there, right? We've got the West Indian cricket team playing in England, and I found out quite a lot that there's no cases in the Caribbean.
There was zero in St. Kitts up until just recently, and then but the borders were closed for people coming in. So I left recently, and now I'm in a different Caribbean island that I won't say exactly which one.
No, that's well, keep it weird. So I've been reading about you a little bit since our conversation on stage and all that stuff, and I honestly didn't realise what a big deal you were. Do you know what I mean? I thought you were very fast, very slick, very interesting, very intelligent guy. But you know, this phrase come up, Bitcoin Jesus. What I mean, I imagine most of our listeners know this. You know, maybe they don't. Where did Bitcoin Jesus come? Was that some promotional work, or was it you, or what was it?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't from me. There are two people that seem to take credit for it, and I don't know exactly who came up with it first, but the idea behind that was, especially in the early days of Bitcoin, everywhere I would go, every single person that I would meet, I would set them up with a Bitcoin wallet, and I would give them some Bitcoin and explain to them how this is one of the most amazing things ever in the entire history of humankind. And so because anybody, whether it was a taxi driver or a server at a restaurant or like anyone and everyone everywhere, and you know, some of these other guys that were a bit older than me, one of them I remember one time looked at me and said, Roger, there were a bunch of high school kids around me, and I was telling all these high school kids about it and setting them up with Bitcoin wallets. There were maybe, you know, a dozen or 2 dozen high school kids, and they were all, you know, enthralled by this, you know, Bitcoin thing, because for young people, it doesn't seem as wild to just do money on your phone or the internet. Yeah. And this other guy that was maybe a decade older than me said, Roger, it's like you're a Bitcoin Jesus, and you have all your disciples around you, because all the high school kids were so excited about it at that point. So it just kind of started, and then here we are, you know, a decade later, and it somehow stuck a bit.
No, well, I think it's not the worst moniker to have, is it? It's as long as there's not too many Judases around betraying you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's plenty of worse things that you can be called in life.
No, absolutely. God, Jesus Christ, absolutely. So tell us about Bitcoin Cash. I mean, I read about it since we spoke last, and I saw you argue your case very vehemently against Tone Vaz on stage in Malta, so to the extent that I almost kind of applauded you. Tell us about Bitcoin Cash, why it was set up to people that maybe are not as well versed in the currency than you or we are.
Yeah, so what I'm about to say will maybe inspire some people to want to call me Bitcoin Judas, but I think it's true here, right? So the truth is far more important than being popular. And so if you look at the things that made Bitcoin popular to begin with, it was super fast, super cheap, super reliable, and what people thought were anonymous payments. And so today, Bitcoin Cash has all of those characteristics, but it doesn't have the name Bitcoin anymore. It's called Bitcoin Cash. And the thing that everybody's calling Bitcoin today that used to have those characteristics, now the transactions are slow, the transactions are expensive, the transactions are not reliable, and they're not anonymous either. So like all the characteristics that made Bitcoin popular to begin with, Bitcoin Cash now has, and the thing that everybody's calling Bitcoin doesn't. But Bitcoin has the price of, you know, almost $10,000, and Bitcoin Cash has the price of, you know, $200 and something. And so the people out there look at Bitcoin, they think that that must be the big deal, but it doesn't have that big deal user experience that made it popular to begin with. So I think at some point, the coins that have the good user experience, meaning fast, cheap, reliable, and private payments, they're going to get more and more traction. And just like at one point, MySpace was the end-all be-all of social networking. When the site became slow and unreliable, people switched to something else. And I think the same is going to be true in regards to Bitcoin if it continues to have slow and unreliable transactions. And people will argue and say, oh, we have Lightning Network or we have this or that, but like, it's not ready yet. And it's been perpetually 18 months away. And maybe someday that'll solve all the problems. If it does, great, I'm happy. All I want out of this is a peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world that nobody can control or block the payments. And I don't care if it's called Bitcoin or Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash or Dash or Monero or take your pick. As long as people out there in the world have it and they can use it and use it sooner rather than later, I'm a happy camper. And the reason I like Bitcoin Cash so much is because I think it's the one that's the closest to being able to achieve that goal for the world.
Okay, so if let's keep the biblical references, we've got Judas, Jesus. When did you get your epiphany about Bitcoin? This process must have taken some time. Presumably you were disillusioned with Bitcoin, and you wanted a better Bitcoin, so you created allegedly a better Bitcoin. How long did that process take?
Yeah, so that's another, I guess, big misconception out there is that I created Bitcoin Cash. The reality is I had absolutely nothing to do with the creation of Bitcoin Cash. Some other guys looked at what was happening with Bitcoin, and I was still there arguing over Bitcoin and telling everybody, hey, we need to make sure that Bitcoin can continue to scale to be money for the world and provide, fast, cheap, reliable transactions for the world, and provide this good user experience. And other people saw the writing on the wall sooner than I did, and so they split the one single Bitcoin into two versions of Bitcoin. One is still called Bitcoin. The other is called Bitcoin Cash. But I had nothing to do with the Bitcoin Cash fork at that point, and wasn't out there supporting it until later. There was this other agreement to implement this thing called segregated witness on Bitcoin and a 2 megabyte block size in addition. And those were supposed to be a package deal, but somehow people allowed the segregated witness part to happen first, and then the 2 megabyte part got scuttled, and it never wound up happening. And so when the 2 megabyte part didn't wind up happening, that's when I switched all of my time and money and effort and resources in Bitcoin.com to start promoting Bitcoin Cash. Because if I'm 41 years old, I remember the big giant floppy disks that would wave around like a floppy disk, and they could only hold, like, I think the earliest ones I had only held like 180 kilobytes, and later 360 kilobytes, then 1.2 megabytes, then 1.44, and like, Bitcoin's been stuck at about 1 megabyte for the last decade. This is absolute nonsense. And if you want it to be money for the world, you can't limit that to 1 megabyte for forever. Technology gets better, computers get faster and cheaper, more reliable. The blockchain can accommodate more transactions as the years go by. And that's the philosophy behind Bitcoin Cash. And for whatever reason, that's not the philosophy behind what's called Bitcoin today. So Bitcoin Cash, I think, has the ability and the potential to scale to be money for the world and bring more economic freedom to people around the world, wherever they happen to be living. And 1 megabyte Bitcoin blocks with high fees and slow, unreliable transactions, I wish them good luck, but I
it sounds kind of obvious what you're doing. It's like version 2.0, right? But what is the kind of general feeling among? I did some really, really difficult moderating last week about Hyperledger Coalition. I mean, honestly, I had John McAfee, and then I had half an hour with him as if we were in a local bar telling baldy jokes to each other. Then I've got this 5 Germans or whatever. What does that type of community think about Bitcoin Cash? To me, as a kind of, I'm 18 years older than you, believe it or not. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't even know what a floppy disk was when I was, 20 years of age. But what about the kind of intellectuals or the smart people in the community? We've got all the big voices shouting about crypto. What do they think about Bitcoin Cash? Are they supportive of what you're trying to do? Because it seems to me like a no-brainer.
Yeah, well, I think we've seen a decentralization of cryptocurrencies. There used to only be Bitcoin, and the slogan, and all these businesses were called Bitcoin businesses. They were called Bitcoin exchanges. Like Coinbase's slogan literally used to be accept Bitcoin. Blockchain.com was literally called a Bitcoin wallet, whereas now Coinbase has a bunch of coins. All these previously Bitcoin exchanges now have a whole bunch of coins. And so we see this decentralization into a whole bunch of different coins, and Bitcoin Cash is just one of them. And I think it's just viewed as just, one more competitor, and it's, number 4 in terms of market cap out there, which is pretty impressive. But there's a lot of choices out there, and there's a lot of coins out there that provide really good user experiences. And it's just people are vying to be the platform that other people build on top of. And so I think one real big step we saw for Bitcoin Cash just yesterday was Tether, which is the number 1 cryptocurrency in terms of, if you call it a cryptocurrency, and it's the US dollar pegged on tokens on blockchains, but it just launched on top of Bitcoin Cash yesterday. So you can now use Tether on top of Bitcoin Cash. And that means it works now with the 12 million Bitcoin.com wallets, and I think that's going to be a real big turning point for Bitcoin Cash, because it has one of the biggest network effects, and it has some of the fastest, cheapest, most reliable transactions of any blockchain, with the most scalability of just about any blockchain. So that's there's a lot of feathers in the Bitcoin Cash hat at this point, but a lot of people I don't think are fully aware of it. The best way to figure it out is use all of these things. Use Ethereum, use Ripple, use Dash, use Bitcoin Cash, and decide for yourself which one's the most useful for you in your life. And My favorite, example of that I always tell people is check out purse.io. You can save 20% on every purchase from Amazon. That's a really compelling use case. And Bitcoin Cash is one of two default currencies over there. It's Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash.
Right. Okay. Cool. So, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, if people don't know about it, you should give a little slap to your mate in London, Danish. Get him to work a bit harder. Give him my love, would you? He's a lovely man.
I'll let him know. And again, this was yesterday, so we'll give him a little bit more time.
As much abuse as possible from my end. But he's a good lad. But so that's quite a big deal, right? What other kind of live projects are there that you're proud of, or projects that are coming up that are going to kind of increase the knowledge about Bitcoin Cash?
Yeah, there's two that I really think stick out. So if you head on over to mint.bitcoin.com, anybody in the course of 20 seconds, 30 seconds, if you're a little bit slow, you can make your own token on top of Bitcoin Cash, and then you can send and receive that with anyone, anywhere in the world, just like that. But the really cool part about it is once those tokens are out there in the ecosystem, you can pay on-chain dividend payments to all of those token holders. So that basically means that the tokens on top of Bitcoin Cash can act like anonymous bearer shares that are also able to receive dividend payments. And the dividend payments can be paid in Bitcoin Cash or Tether, US dollar Tether, or any other token out there. So that's a really, really big deal. And nobody's done it yet, and I'm not aware of anybody who has it already in the works. But I think philosophically, one of the most interesting things to have happen, I think somebody will do it here at some point, is if we have one of these darknet markets that, they're already breaking the law, allowing people to buy and sell illegal drugs. Imagine if they had an illegal IPO to go on top of that. Now people can own tokens in an illegal darknet market and receive part of the profits that website makes each month in on-chain paid dividends there. I think that would be incredibly fascinating to see that happen. And I think it's just a matter of time until we see that happen.
Well, we were talking to McAfee last week about his ghost coin protocol. And it's like, question, are you worried that this might be a place for money laundering? He goes, yeah, fuck yeah, bring it on. I want money launderers. I want drug dealers. Because he made a very good point that people use money for all types of things. I mean, I paid my son to go through school. Other people use it to buy drugs, buy arms. I mean, it's not the money's fault, right? You know what I mean?
That's right. The US dollar is the #1 used currency for doing illegal things.
Exactly. So. Do you have a favorite altcoin? I'll start because I've always been kind of ether guy really, until all my money was stolen. I had $30,000 hacked. I wrote a piece about it for the BBC, hoping that Binance might reimburse me, but they never did. I even had CZ on the show, and I brought it up with him, but he still didn't give me my money back. I quite like Cardano. I quite like what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cardano's been super hot the last couple of days, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's gone right up as well. I think it was after I moderated that really boring panel and everyone realized that I could be the
the catalyst to move Cardano to the next level.
Catalyst, that was the word I was looking for. So are you a fan of Cardano, or is there anyone that particular that kind of bites it?
Yeah, to be honest, so Charles Hodgkinson, every interaction I've ever had with him has been fantastic. Really calm, respectful, level-headed guy is my impression of him. So I'm a fan of his on a personal level. I don't know enough about the Cardano platform itself to have a strong opinion one way or another. I know a bit more about ETH, and I've been a big fan of Ethereum for a long time here. And a lot of people like to, make fun of ICOs and say that they're horrible. But if you think about it, I think ICOs are one of the most interesting things to have happened in the cryptocurrency space. And any investor can now invest in any entrepreneur anywhere in the world. That's a really, really big deal that wasn't possible before the Ethereum ICO craze. And so I think I'm a big fan of Ethereum because of that.
Oh, okay. No, well, my interaction with Charles wasn't as good as yours. We had a fantastic interview about 2 weeks ago, and utterly endorse everything you said about him. Intelligent, well spoken, calm. Until we fucked up the Zoom recording. So there's got this hour of beauty, and we tried everything to get it back, and we lost it. It was a real shame, but I think we'll get it back. Because he wanted me to become friends on Facebook, so we must be friends, right? But I really like it. Are there any other ones that kind of like, apart from Ether, anything kind of on the outskirts that are of interest?
Yeah, I've been a big fan of all the privacy coins for a while. Monero and the crypto note-based ones are probably the most interesting. I used to think that having every transaction be completely private all the time was the best way by default was the best way for things to go. But I heard an interesting argument that made me change my mind on that. And the argument was that if the cryptocurrency is totally private by default every time, all the time, governments will ban it. Whereas if you have the privacy tools happen above the base layer, so like things like, Cash Fusion on Bitcoin Cash that you can get right now today that make Bitcoin Cash transactions, when you opt into it, about the same level of privacy as a Monero transaction. But it's not the currency itself. So it makes it much harder for the regulators or politicians to blame the cryptocurrency itself. So like Monero's already been banned from a bunch of different exchanges in a bunch of different countries by governments, whereas Bitcoin Cash doesn't have that problem, even though when you're using Cash Fusion, it can have privacy in the same ballpark as Monero, but because it's not part of the underlying protocol itself, it gets a much, a bit of a free pass with the regulators on that front.
Yeah, okay. Now, Monero as well, they kind of nicked my Ethereum, so I hate Monero with all my heart. Sorry, Monero fans. Okay, so the challenges ahead for Bitcoin Cash. I mean, the regulatory aspect of this whole world something of concern to you? I mean, I know you've been adversarial in the past and very, very, stalwart in your belief in decentralized, whatever that was we said at the start of the show, which was really good. But you said it so quickly, I couldn't understand it very much. What was it? Peer-to-peer? What was it? It was very good. That's the one. What's the challenges ahead for you guys? I mean, are the kind of like the feds and all that a problem, or what?
And throughout human history, I think you could argue that governments have been the biggest problem that humanity has, ever faced. And they murder more people than, any private murderer ever. I just look at, what happened in the last century, how many tens of millions of people were murdered by various governments, not even counting war, just murdered by their own governments, their own countries. But in regards to cryptocurrency, I think the problems Bitcoin Cash has to overcome are the same problems any cryptocurrency has to overcome. It has to be made useful for normal people to want to use in their daily lives. And I think a lot of people don't realize that mass adoption helps provide censorship resistance. If you have everybody using cryptocurrency for all their daily shopping and their supermarket stuff and buying their dog food with it, it's really hard for governments to demonize it and ban it at that point because everybody's using it for everything. I'd imagine if governments tried to say that the internet's illegal, you can't use the internet, people would riot in the street overnight because it becomes such an important part of our lives. And if we can make Bitcoin Cash or any cryptocurrency that important a part of people's lives, it'll be too late for governments to ban them.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. Well, I got the fear when COVID came, and I've got to get some cash, some money. So I took out 20 grand, 20 English pounds, filled up the car with diesel, filled up 2 petrol cans. I was ready to go. Then realised that cash was the worst possible thing to have because it passed on the virus. I'm
getting the COVID directly from the car.
I'm not a prepper. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so what about COVID? Is that? I mean, I know you're always on the circuit, appearing at shows, spreading the word as the Bitcoin evangelist, Jesus, whatever. Has that kind of screwed you up in any way, or has it given you time to reflect? And how's your experience? What I've found is that in the last kind of week, I've been seeing people face to face, and we're talking about how we felt as we went through the COVID. I mean, obviously, I had fear to begin with. It's become quite a nice thing to discuss feelings, I suppose, in that respect. So I'm asking you, man to man, emotionally, Roger, how did you feel over those 3 or 4 months? Did you feel as if it had screwed up your business, or were you just quietly confident? You look confident.
Yeah, my feelings. I guess it really made me feel like it was cramping my lifestyle. I used to, zip from one country to another, several, maybe, once a week to a new country. And then that definitely has not been the case. I've only been in 2 countries now for the last, since March, I think it is. So
oh, wow.
I haven't done that for like a decade or plus. So.
But that was that a bad thing? I mean, I was just saying. I mean, I'm not as kind of ubiquitous on the circuit as you are, and and I'd go to different conferences, and it'd be like, "Oh, I haven't been to that city. I can't wait to go." I'd make a choice as a traveller, I suppose, as opposed to businessman. But I had the same almost lack of status. You know what I mean? Like, because I used to like my life like that. You know what I mean? And then suddenly I can't even go to Scotland from London because it's just weird. But do you think that
the world has changed?
Yeah, well, the whole world's just a bit shitter. You know what I mean? Like if I went to a pub at the weekend, it was great, pint. but it was just a little bit shitter. You know what I mean? I got on the train, it was nice, but it was just a bit shitter. You know what I mean? So with this kind of like madness, how do you think it's affected Bitcoin Cash and you? Give me some hope, man, because I'm not having a good day.
Yeah, here's some hope. So with all these people that were under quarantine, locked at home and not allowed to go anywhere, what did they do? They went and got on the computer and they started researching cryptocurrency. So the traffic to all these different cryptocurrency websites is, higher than ever before during these different lockdowns. It was really amazing to see on blockchain.poker as an example of it. All these new people that were new to crypto started playing poker on the internet, and somehow they came across blockchain.poker, and there were a huge number of people that were over there playing poker with other people around the world using cryptocurrency. It was really neat to see the uptick in traffic on that and other cryptocurrency related websites. So there's your ray of hope in the darkness.
Thank you. So COVID has been that catalyst you mentioned earlier for crypto, maybe.
Yeah, we can hope that that's one good thing. And people want to use cryptocurrency. You don't have to touch dirty money. Physical money is dirty, nasty stuff compared to cryptocurrency. So
yeah. I've got a question that we kind of went through your people with, and it says, I could have made that up and said that it was from a listener, but it wasn't. It says well, it matters to be honest with you, mate. YouTube has been awfully harsh on crypto recently. How do you react when caught in such a situation? Which is quite a strange question, but.
Yeah, it's phrased a little bit strangely, but I just right before the call, I noticed we over at mining.bitcoin.com, where we have our Bitcoin mining related stuff, we had an embedded YouTube video where it was interviewing different miners talking about cryptocurrency mining. And I noticed that YouTube, it said this video has been removed for violating our terms of service or content or something like that. And so it just really makes me think it's time for a platform other than YouTube. And
Absolutely.
YouTube just been going really crazy, banning some of the most interesting people on the platform, and same with Twitter. And when you ban the most controversial people, you're banning the most interesting people as well, because people that are controversial are interesting. People want to hear new ideas, be exposed to new thought-provoking things. And when you start banning that, it just really detracts from the whole platform. So I'm really eager to start seeing platforms that aren't subject to the same level of censorship as the Twitters and the YouTubes and the Facebooks of the world.
Do you use them still? I mean, I went on to Twitter last week just because I used to love Twitter, right? 5 or 6 years ago, it's brilliant. But I thought it was a place where you could share ideas, not a fucking lynch mob. You know what I mean? And I went on it last week, and it was like, Jesus, man, you're just all mad. All of you. Calm down. But I don't know where to go.
Yeah, I used to love Twitter, but yeah, that's the question. Where do you go? And now it just seems like there's an angry, cesspool of, pitchforks and angry mob wanting to burn things down. And another thing I'm sick of are all these COVID-19 advertisements on every single YouTube video underneath, and if you go on Facebook, it's everywhere. You just can't get away from the COVID-19 propaganda either.
No, it's like, if I get another press release saying we raised money during a pandemic, right, about my company, I'm pleased that the peak is over, so I don't have to say stay safe at the end of every email that I had to make before. You know what I mean? So you think it's a catalyst? Oh, that's good. So what about Bitcoin itself? What do you think its future is? Do you think it's going to stay around $10,000 by the end of the year? It's going to go up. Do you give a shit?
Yeah, and I still have a meaningful amount of Bitcoin, so I do still care, and I can actually tell you a story. So earlier this year, it might have been a year ago now, actually. I woke up one morning and I started reading the cryptocurrency news like I do every day. And this particular article just made me sick to my stomach. I just felt horrible, like, oh my God. And the article said that the Bitcoin core developers for BTC, they decided to come together and they're going to raise the block size limit to accommodate additional capacity on chain. And I read that and I just thought, oh no, now I have to sell all my Bitcoin Cash back into Bitcoin. And it was just so frustrating because I was going to wind up with a lot less Bitcoin than I had before I sold my Bitcoin into Bitcoin Cash. And as I read the article, and everything they said in the article made sense for why they were going to do it. And I was like, I guess better late than never that they're doing that. And then I got to the end of the article and I realized, wait a minute. They published this article on this website on April 1st. This is just a big joke. And that's a true story. It really happened to me. I literally felt sick to my stomach until I realized that it was a joke article and they weren't going to. The worst thing that could ever possibly happen to Bitcoin Cash would be for Bitcoin to raise its block size.
Man,
Bitcoin Cash.
You got pranks, bro. Do you know what I mean? But my co-founder who's on this call is a lovely guy, and he's worked really hard to get you on the show, right? Do you know what I mean? So I opened up the Zoom link to get there, and then after I'd opened the Zoom link up, I rang him up to prank him, saying, like, "I mean, my motorbike's broken down. I'm off the side of the road." And as I started that call, it started coming out of the Zoom. So that was a prank fail. Do you know what I mean? You are talking to someone that needs to get out more, man. Do you know what I mean? You look like you're in a nice place. I mean, I've got all these books, but I've read them all. But you look like you've got a bit of breeze there, man. Where are you? In the Caribbean somewhere?
Yeah, I'm still in the Caribbean, but books are the best adventure you can possibly have. You can spend time directly one-on-one with some of the best minds who have ever lived. So you're on the right path with all those books. What's
your favorite book, or the most influential book on your life? I'll start. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance changed my life.
Say it again. You spoke too quickly.
Sorry, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It was a kind of hipster book in the 70s. That book definitely changed my life.
I'm not familiar with that one. I think probably the one that wound up changing my life the most, but I didn't realize it as I was reading it, would be Future Imperfect by David Friedman.
Oh, and yes.
I don't know if have you read that one?
Yeah, it's up there somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, in it he describes how public key cryptography works and how people could have anonymous identities on the internet that are separate from their real world identities. And the example he gave wasn't selling drugs. The example he gave was practicing law without a license. And he talked about how you could have illegal lawyers practicing law without a license. And the only piece of the puzzle that was missing for all of that was a peer-to-peer electronic, I think he called it cyber cash or e-cash in the book.
Yeah.
And so I read that book around 1999 or so when it came out. And then when I heard about Bitcoin a decade plus later, it was like, oh, here's the missing piece of the puzzle that turned into existence. So, and that's part of what really made me jump in with both feet into Bitcoin, was having read that book more than a decade earlier. So
you should. Have you ever met him? You should meet him.
I've met him a couple of times, actually. Yeah, I met him at various conferences in Silicon Valley early on. And then I've gotten to know his son a bit as well, Patrick Friedman, who's doing lots of interesting stuff in regards to charter cities around the world. Okay. And actually, I just invested in his startup called Pronomos Capital, along with some other big time libertarians there, like Peter Thiel and a number of others. So it's a real honor to be able to be a part of that and be helping that with funds that I earn from cryptocurrency.
So you're a big investor, or just kind of here and there?
Yeah, more and more so. We're busy deploying the capital out for this Bitcoin Cash ecosystem fund. So that's a big chunk of my time each week is spent on evaluating different businesses and closing deals on that front to build the infrastructure to make Bitcoin Cash usable as cash for everybody all over the world.
Yeah, okay. Are you still giving away Bitcoin Cash to your disciples at various moments?
Absolutely am. Yeah, at the hotel I'm staying at now, everybody here in the hotel that's working at the hotel, they now have some Bitcoin Cash, and they're excited because the price has gone up quite a bit over the last couple of days. So now they're asking, how can we get more? How can we buy more?
We have to rename you. We've had so many biblical references in this kind of broadcast, from Judas to Epiphanies to evangelism. I think, I've never read the Bible. Maybe we should both read the Bible. That's the one book I've read the Quran, Bhagavad Gita and all that, all the big books, but I've never read the Bible. Maybe it's time. Maybe you changed my life. The Bitcoin Jesus changed my life. Fuck. We've got a story. Roger Ver made me read the Bible. It's like a Vice headline. You know what I mean?
That's definitely a clickbait headline there.
Hey, listen, man, I know you're a busy guy. I know you've got your palm trees to go back to. It's great to be reconnected with you. You're always very, very fast, smart mind. I wish you the best of luck with what you're doing. Love to have you back on the show. Give Danish a punch in the ribs from me. And thank you very much for your time. I think our our audience will have loved this. Not least the book that gave you your inspiration. Thank you very much, Roger Ver. Good luck with what you're doing. This is Blockspeak 20 signing out. I'm going to go for a walk, I think. Too many Zoom calls, but that was a great conversation with Roger. See you next week. We've got a special guest again, but I don't know who it is yet. Okay, bye.